Hello, everyone. I definitely like a gamer in this. Can everyone hear me? Okay? Perfect. Perfect. So my name is Jovana Grujic. I am the Director of Client Solutions at Channel Factory for the region of EMEA. And I am here today to talk to you about positivity in advertising. For those of us that don't know us yet, Channel Factory is a well, that's great. Is a purpose driven company looking to run contextually relevant and conscious campaigns for our clients. Together with me, Michael Brown will be coming up from He's a D&I champion and managing partner at to talk more about what is doing to keep this industry more diverse and more inclusive. A question to all of you. Does everyone here know who Greta Thunberg is and Malala Yousafzai? Very well known for being pioneers for driving positive change and advocating for it in the world. What they're lesser known for is that their names are part of a lot of media block lists that are used at this very moment. Here are some more words that we would say are inherently good, that we want to drive awareness about, and that we want to promote, right? And what do they all have in common? They're also deemed unsuitable. Does this surprise you at all? Anyone? I think the core thing here is to understand that from a media perspective, have these standard approaches that we're using today to keep brands safe, have they actually kind of held us back from being inclusive, right? Are we all trying to play it a little bit too safe to mitigate risk? Are we trying to be, a little bit too cautious? I don't think so. As an industry, we are driving this. We are used to taking risks. We are used to mitigating it and also to talk about challenges. So how do we shift the conversation from overblocking and into an era where we are leading with truly inclusive objectives? The best way to start is by being conscious of our own attitudes and biases, and conscious about what is surrounding us. Today we use keyword lists, deem content suitable or unsuitable. Although well-intentioned to mitigate and basically stay out of risk, what's happening is that these lists are reducing the potential, it's reducing our scale, and they often feature words that censor full parts of communities and full parts of our consumers. So this is something that we need to resolve. And it's complex, the fix is complex, and it requires openness to both the challenge but also to the solutions and commitment to the solutions across multiple stakeholders. As Unilever's own Luis DeComo said, we need to focus more on what we want to support and what we want to invest in, and not what we want to stay away from. Now, where this started was with the digital media revolution. It started with the launch of digital video and the rise of social media platforms as we know them today. These standards, we didn't have any standards at all during this time. Digital ads were everywhere. There was fraud, bot traffic was a huge issue. And Mark Pritchard of P&G said it best. Half of his digital advertising was wasted. He just didn't know which half. So this period of chaos, as we call it, demanded more measures and controls. It demanded taking back power as agencies and marketers. So moving away from that, we came to something that became and still is industry best practice. This is where the IAB introduced the 3Ms. We have had an MRC who introduced the web viewability guidelines in 2014. And we also have a series of standards from the WFA, Global Alliance of Responsible Media, in 2019. Now, this was great, and it kept brands safer. The environments became safer. However, at the core of this were keyword-based brand safety and suitability methodologies. And here is the problem. When ISIS terror attacks were happening, we included words like Arab, Muslim, Quran to not monetize terror attacks. We added on words like gay, lesbian, LGBTQ to not monetize homophobic content. We actually created barriers that prevented many communities and many content creators to be able to be monetized. So much so that in 2022, 73% of all LGBTQ content creators were unmonetized. And this guy, Emmanuel Acho, who has a podcast where he's talking to Barack Obama about how to cure racism, was also deemed unsafe and unsuitable. Think about it. Our industry, have we been so sturdy and so focused on being cautious that we have led and created unintended consequences where we have embarked on an unintentional era of exclusion? And we need to move this into an era where exclusion lists are not exclusive and where inclusion lists are truly inclusive. We do this by keeping a balance between keeping brands responsibly safe and at the same time focusing on being inclusive and equitable. If we think about it as an industry and the power we actually have, the amount of money we control to actually influence people on a day-to-day basis, we have the rise of Gen Z, we have the rise of Gen Alpha. We need to create belonging for our future adults. That is very important and something that I want to kind of leave you with. Not really leave you yet, but the journey basically started with chaos. It was responded by conscious with exclusions, and now we need to be conscious. So what does being conscious really mean? It means that you're noticing or realizing that something is happening, that you're more likely to notice or appraise, consider, and be interested in what's happening, and you're ultimately more likely to act. Because if we don't, then we're part of the problem. If we choose to do nothing, we're actually condoning the era of exclusion. Being conscious is being compelled to take a stand, to shine a light, and lead the journey to a more equitable era of inclusion, not just for consumers, but also for brands, for our business, and for our industry. And only by being conscious of content creators and all of their content can we actually avoid the negative, so overblocking, and drive our industry and, to be honest, our society towards a more positive and inclusive way of seeing it. So we at Channel Factory are committed to evangelizing this lack of diversity and inclusion in our industry. We are committed to designing new brand suitability methodologies where we are not inherently but unintentionally discriminatory, and we are partnering with like-minded agencies, industry leaders, to make sure that what we're doing is actually ethically and commercially the right thing to do, and that is being diverse and inclusive. So we can do it, but we think that together we can move faster and we can go further. So let's do this and let's be conscious. And with that, I want to invite the lovely D&I champion, Michael Brown, on stage to talk more about what has done on this.
Oh my God, that photo is so embarrassing.
Isn't it always? Isn't it always?
That's especially bad.
Wrong glasses. So, Michael, you were awarded with the IPA Fellowship yesterday, which I'd like to congratulate you on, and it's because of all the great things you've done in the D&I sphere. Would you want to tell us a little bit about how you're working with conscious advertising from a and IPG perspective?
Yes, Joanna, thank you. I'd love to. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be with you. There's kind of two main areas where we've been channeling our attention. Firstly, around creative representation. So, who has heard of the Unstereotype Alliance here? Please put your hands up if you've heard of it. Natasha's heard of it, so I've bored you with it over and over, Tash. But the Unstereotype Alliance is a big project that we, as IPG, which is our parent company, founded 6 years ago in partnership with Unilever. So it's IPG, Unilever, and UN Women. And it's a project that's all about using the power of representation in advertising, so portrayal, to try and tackle stereotypes in society. We've got a chapter here in the UK, which has got lots of different media owners, clients, and agencies. We sit there actually cross-competitively with others like WPP, with a shared aim of channeling that cultural influence of advertising to tackle stigma and stereotyping. If you want to hear more about that, please write to me later on LinkedIn, because we're always looking for new members. It's brilliant. Diageo are at the table, Unilever obviously at the table, Mars. From a media investment perspective, we have created a strategy called the Better World Media Strategy, which is all about conscious investment. First of all, it goes without saying, given our intentions in this space, we're members of the Conscious Ad Network, which I would recommend to everybody as a kind of starting point. Amazing organization of like-minded people. Better World Media is all about using our clients' investment. So we've got clients at the agency like American Express, Johnson & Johnson, Mattel, and obviously, massive budgets. And so the way that we spend those budgets can make a huge difference. And actually, we're seeing clients like Amex, Mattel, Spotify, who are really taking that responsibility very seriously. And so they're the two main areas, really, around on Stereotype Alliance, which is around creative representation, and then around our Better World Media investment strategy, which is about channeling investment towards diversity-owned, diversity-targeted media partners, in short.
Yeah. And speaking of your clients like American Express, etc., what are the themes that come up when you're talking to them concerning conscious advertising and DE&I in advertising? What are the core themes, would you say?
So one of the main themes that I've identified is just a certain increased seriousness and committedness to making a positive difference. I think before there were kind of vague intentions, perhaps a bit of ESG pressure, but now there are real big ideas and also targets around diverse client investment. So, three of our biggest clients have actually had the discipline to say, well, this year we're going to spend, say, 10% of our media investment in diversely owned, diversity targeted media. Why is it important? Well, listen, our media industry, the landscape has a complete scarcity of diverse media titles. Galden went out of business a few weeks ago, as I'm sure many of you know, and that is a small tragedy in and of itself. That platform was such an important space for representing and elevating women and non-binary people's voices, people of color. So it's all the more important that we're really conscious and intentional in directing investment towards partners like that. So I would say more intention, more discipline, but also the main counter argument to investing in some of these partners like Galden traditionally has been there's no reach.
Yeah.
We'd rather work with another partner because we can reach many more people. That is now starting to drop away, which is a kind of small mercy, to be honest, because the context, the authenticity of a brand showing up in those spaces, a brand like, say, J&J supporting Black Ballad, which is another fantastic platform for black women in the UK, people see that, and they know that that is an implicit statement of support for their community, and that leads to incremental brand impact.
So more seriousness and more committedness, which is definitely what we need. And regarding inclusion in advertising, just you as an industry leader, I would call you an amazing person, D&I champ. What would your one ask to the industry be regarding inclusion advertising?
So hybrid times feels like there's just more pressure on our diaries than ever before. And it's so difficult to prioritize things that are not business critical, that are not essential to getting through the weeks. And so the first thing I'd say is just really try and make time and space for this. We've seen how much progress we can make in an accelerated way when it comes to things like devolving from cookies, evolving the way we do commerce, that kind of thing. I think we need that same energy for rapid change in prioritizing conscious investment. The other thing I would say is that, and I don't mean to throw shade on other holding companies, but what I've heard from clients who work with other agencies is that rarely do their agencies put in front of them diversely owned, diversely targeted partners. And I think that's because some of the other holding companies are a bit stricter on recommending media owners they've got massive trading relationships with. And there's a lot of pressure to meet those targets. Trading relationships, by the way, are an essential and very important part of our business, and we take them seriously. But there's space for those to be honoured and to have amazing formal commercial relationships with the biggest publishers out there, whilst also nourishing some of these minoritized groups and communities. Now, listen, Jamal Edwards, his passing was a tragedy last year on a personal level. From a media perspective, it was a terrible tragedy as well, because Jamal was such a role model to other founders of different publishers and platforms. And so we have to really embrace them and help them in every way that we can. There's another one I would name, which is Nafisa Bakar, who founded Amalia, which is a platform for Muslim women in the UK. Quick parenthesis, Muslim people in the UK represent, I think, 7% of the population. That's 5 million people. That's a lot of shoppers. It's a lot of spending power. So the commercial argument, thankfully, is starting to dawn on people more and more, I think.
Perfect. I think we're out of time. I would leave the audience with one thing. Look through your block lists, clean them up as a first step. It will make all the difference. If you want to know more about conscious advertising, about us, you can just scan this, and you can also find us over at the marquee, I think. Thank you.